Hi, my name's Allison Clark, and welcome to another episode of Cowbells and Conversations. Today, I have a guest that I've known for over 8 years, and I first met her professionally. I did some executive coaching with her. She also took my presentation class, and over the 8 years, we became friends. And I've never met anyone so goal-driven in my life. She always would sit down with me and figure out, okay, what's my challenge? What should I do this year? And always hit her goals. So I've always been extremely inspired by this next person. In October 2019, she actually got the news that she had breast cancer. And she's been fighting breast cancer ever since with such strength, positive attitude, and she inspired me. So in January, I had not really set a physical goal that had scared me for a while. So I decided to run a half marathon in honor of Leslie, because she could not run right now. So actually, I have had Leslie's initials on my shoe. It's kind of dirty, but on my shoe since January. So at Orange Theory, I would work out and I would visualize Leslie and I would see her, and I've been sending her energy. So she's been a big part of my life for 8 years. She's been a huge inspiration to me, and I'm so excited to have her as my guest today. So Leslie, if you could introduce yourself, just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and then also what you've done professionally. Welcome.
Hey, Allison. Thanks for having me. So my name's Leslie Ruminski, born and raised here in Oregon, an Oregon State undergrad alumni. Go Bees.
Go Beavers.
Nice hat right there with your kindness hat. But
Thank you.
Nice shoes. I'm glad they're dirty. That means they're getting some use, and we'll get your goal out there for you. So thanks for having me on Cowbells and Conversation.
You're welcome. So I write Tuesday tips every Tuesday, surprisingly. And I wrote one a couple weeks ago. During this time, you know, there's a lot of things that are going wrong, obviously, in the world right now, but there's also a lot of things that are going right. And I started to journal what I was experiencing starting in March about bonus activities that would never have happened unless this pause would have, actually come into the world. And so I wrote an article about it, and mine were experiences with my daughters, different hikes that I never would have gone on, making more fires, connecting with people. I now have 45 things written on my whiteboard, and I continue to add to it. I did footloose dance with my neighbors, just crazy stuff that I never would have done. So it's helped me really look at the positive. And I gave a challenge to people. I said, write 10 things that have happened to you that never would have happened that are positive to get people's mindset just different and more positive. So of course, Leslie, who is, again, one of my number one goal setting people ever, said, oh, I'm totally going to do that. And I'm like, okay, good. So we actually had a meeting last week, and she went through her top 10, and they were awesome. I'm like, can you please become a guest with us today? So we're going to focus on 5, right? Of what we've narrowed it down to 5 of during this time. So really starting end of February, March. What have you experienced? So again, you were, just quickly about your cancer, you were diagnosed in October. So can you give us just kind of a snapshot about like what you've gone through with that?
Yeah, I am the 1 in 8 women in your lives that gets diagnosed with breast cancer. I have no family history of it, and I had no indication or symptoms or whatnot. It was caught on a routine mammogram. So from that perspective, I'm going to be your poster child for routine mammograms. I was diagnosed in October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I had surgery in November. I started chemotherapy in January, and I began radiation in May. So I'm currently, and I just started radiation. So that has been my breast cancer journey. And as Allison always does on Tuesday's tips, she always puts out inspiration or a challenge or a goal or some sort of reflection. And I take Allison's challenges really seriously. I find a lot of benefit and value. I've been subscribing to him for 8 years. And this one was no different. This one was really impactful. And I took a moment to really think about what are those bonus activities. And I'm really excited to share a few of them with you.
Yay!
So, ready?
Yes. Let's start with number 1.
The number 1 bonus activity is Channel 8 KGW News Story. So let me explain a little bit about that. I believe the local news has done a really good job of trying to highlight positivity and try to highlight hopefulness. And I was asked to be included in 2 different stories on Channel 8 in regards to what is it like being a cancer patient through a global pandemic. Mm-hmm. And it was something that was pushing me outside of my boundaries because they asked me to do 2 things. They asked me to include some photos from a professional photo shoot that I had through a nonprofit organization called Breast Friends. Mm-hmm. The photo shoot is called Bald is Beautiful. And then they also asked me if I would be willing to go out with a head covering. Mm-hmm. So my first time ever going out with a head covering was for my Bald is Beautiful photo shoot, which is rather emotional because the loss of hair is the #1 distressing side effect for women going through cancer. And the second time I went out without a head covering was for those KGW stories. Mm-hmm. And the third time that I'm going to be going out in public is right now. So while I love my beeves, mm-hmm. This is the face of cancer. So this is a push outside of my comfort zone. And the reason I was willing to do the photo shoot as well as have my story aired on local news was because I know if I shared my experience and my anxiety and my emotions that I had been going through and continue to go through in quarantine, I know that there were other women and other cancer patients out there who are experiencing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So that is my first bonus quarantine activity, is going out in public without a head covering.
Wow. Well, thank you for making us your 3rd appearance.
Yeah.
I love your courage.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Second bonus quarantine activity is asking for and accepting help. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning of the pandemic, when the CDC put out guidelines of who was a vulnerable patient population, it was really interesting to reconcile with myself. That was me. Mm-hmm. And what was even more humbling and heartening is everyone else recognized I was in that category as well. People started increasing their texts and their calls and their FaceTimes and their Zoom conversations with me. They began to offer to run errands, go to the grocery store, drop off food. And I'm an independent woman. I've been in the workforce for over 27 years. And I really would have just said, no, I've got it. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Really, that's a kind offer. I appreciate it. But I actually started saying yes. Yes, thank you. I'd love it if you would be able to do that. Yes, that would be very helpful. So for me, accepting help was a big step in one of my bonus activities, as well as asking for help. So mm-hmm. Allison, you and I subscribe to the same philosophy of energy, and giving energy is how you get energy. And so I have always been a giver of energy and positivity. And I recognized this extreme extrovert needed a little bit of help mm-hmm. during this time of isolation that I hadn't experienced before. Mm-hmm. So I began to reach out to people like you and other friends and say, hey, could we do a Zoom call? Can we FaceTime? Mm-hmm. Can we chat? Mm-hmm. Something that became so much more important for me. And also the skill of asking and accepting for help was a huge bonus for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also we had talked about it, that people like to help. Like that makes us feel good. So when we say yes to people, it's a win-win for other people because it gives them energy, but people want to help. And I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. We're very independent. But we need to say yes, because when we say yes, it's a win for both people. So again, that takes courage, stretching your comfort zone to say yes, because it's a shift.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very, very grateful. In fact, I have a plate of nutrition bars that someone dropped by for me a couple days ago. I'm very grateful, and I accepted that culinary quarantine delight. Okay, ready for my next one?
Number 3,
Zoom acupuncture and homeopathic supplements. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure everyone in your group and your listeners and audience right now has done a bazillion Zoom meetings and done Zoom for everything, but how in the heck do you do Zoom acupuncture? Let me explain it a little bit, what I mean by that. So weekly acupuncture was part of my treatment plan and my recovery for symptoms from chemotherapy and from cancer treatment. It was done by a naturopath. He also recommends homeopathic supplements, and he has students from the local naturopathic schools in the Portland area that he has as part of their learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when everything shut down and I was no longer able to receive acupuncture, in the absence of it, my symptoms were still happening. And I reached out to him and he said, why don't you try some homeopathic medicines and remedies? And I'd never done that before. So I opened my eyes and my mind and my thought process to, if I can't have acupuncture, I can't go see any provider right now, what can it do to help me? So I actually have been taking homeopathic supplements to help me with my side effects and symptoms from cancer treatment.
And has it helped you?
It has, and I'm very thankful for that. And the other part that was fun is the naturopath called me and said, I have students that need to graduate. They need to graduate this spring term. They still need patient contact hours. They still need to have experiences with patients. Would you be willing to do a Zoom meeting with them, describe your symptoms, have a conversation with them, and they would recommend where and how, what type of treatments they would do. So I've been doing Zoom acupuncture meetings and appointments with my naturopath and all of his students so they can continue to learn and they can continue to benefit from experiences with cancer patients.
Wow. So really giving back to them, but also really having your mindset of being adaptable to other things. You know, like we cannot do the things we used to do. And you and I had conversations how hard that is for people in the hospital right now because you lost all of your support. You had to be dropped off for your chemo treatments. You couldn't have your friends come with you. And then you couldn't have acupuncture. Like there's a lot that have taken away from a lot of patients right now. And so I think all of us need to be more aware of how we can help. But I love how you're giving back to the medical community, you know, by really being able to teach them. So really just being flexible and adaptable is another strength that you have, you know, as you've always had it, but like you're using that.
And it's been fun because I've had weekly purposeful meetings to be able to help contribute to their education for cancer patients in the future.
Good.
Awesome. Are you ready?
Number 4.
Next one. Our next quarantine bonus activity is LinkedIn community 3 times a day. Okay, so Allison, I said at the beginning, 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer.
1 in 8.
1 in 8 women are.
Yep.
36 million people as of today are unemployed in America. And last month I became that part of that statistical group as well. So last month I lost my organizational change management contract due to COVID, and it was suspended with no return date. So what I did along with everybody else is I immediately went to LinkedIn, and that platform has really transformed and really changed. There's a lot of resources for people who've had job loss from COVID. There's a lot of articles, there's a lot of support. And there was one article that I read that really resonated for me, and one tip that I'd like to share with your group. And I have a flashlight here because it talks about spotlighting. What it asks for you to do on LinkedIn is to choose different people or different posts to comment on per day. And instead of treating LinkedIn like other social media platforms where you just scroll and like and scroll and like, over the past month, I've been very intentional about stopping, reading an article or reading a post, and thoughtfully commenting with my perspective and my praise and spotlighting that individual for sharing their wisdom and their perspective. What I've really noticed, Allison, is I have broadened my network. I've had people liking my comments. I've had people commenting on my comments. I've seen the community really come forward to try to help one another and to be available and be giving and sharing of their thoughts and their perspective to help all of us and anyone who's unemployed or underemployed right now.
I love that. And it's such a great way to build relationships because if you just do a little bit of customization to commenting, it's huge. For an example, if it's someone's birthday on LinkedIn, and all the people who just automatically sent me a happy birthday, thank you very much. That was very kind. And the people who actually wrote a customized message to me, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I had told you about the button that you can press and you can actually record memos. I like to sing songs to people sometimes, depending on what you can do. But when we can customize that, you're really building that relationships. And so that helps you in your career, but also it gives you energy because you just made that person's day by taking a little bit of time. So you do it 3 times a day. Is that what you said?
Yes, I do.
How much time does that take you?
Less than 15 minutes.
Exactly. Right. But to what your time did to that person, they smile and like, hey, I know I get so excited when people comment on mine. I'm like, yay. And you did that for me. So I put out another challenge of walking or running 100 miles in 30 days. And I love that, of course, you're one of the first ones. You're like, I'm in. I'm like, okay, you just went through chemotherapy and radiation, and you're one of the first ones to be like, yes, I'm doing this. I was like, that's why, that's one of the reasons why I love you. You're like, yes, I'm in.
Yep.
So I've experienced, your commenting. So thank you.
Awesome. And if you guys don't know what Allison's talking about doing those voice recordings for people, reach out to her. It's pretty powerful.
Fun.
I've gotten a few of them and they're fun.
Good.
Okay. Speaking of fun, let's talk about another quarantine fun activity. And so this is kind of a twofer. So hope your audience will be okay with it.
Yes.
Coffee with creamer and reading fiction. So as you've said, I try to do things intentionally. So every morning I drink green tea. It's antioxidant. It's good for your body. It's cancer fighting. So every morning I drink green tea. When this pandemic started.
And you did this years, you've always had tea since we've met. Yes.
Always had tea.
Yep.
But when the pandemic began, I really was noticing a lot of heaviness and a lot of serious tone. And I thought, I just need a little bit of joy and comfort. So part of my joy and comfort is my creamer. I put in my coffee now and I enjoy it. And I have no other purpose other than enjoying it.
Yep.
And I have my Kindle, which now has fiction on it. I've always been a self-help reader or a professional development reader, and those things are fantastic. But I feel like right now in this pandemic, I have been and continue to be inundated with facts and data and information that's a lot to process. And I've always wanted more time for just joyful reading of fiction, and I've made that a priority. So my Kindle is loaded and being used, and I enjoy my creamer.
Cream with your coffee. And it's like that Parks and Rec, treat yourself, because you have to do the little things that make you happy. Always, but especially in this time, because it's something we can control. It's what we put in our body. It's what you do with your brain. And that's so healthy also to have that escape into someone else's story.
Perfect. So Allison, I have one last one, if that's okay, I can share it with you. So it is paint by number. So you've read there's a baking craze, there's a gardening craze. I didn't jump on either of those bandwagons. I jumped on the crafting craze. So there's a lot of paint by number kits for adults out there. Last month, I went ahead and said, what the heck? I'm going to buy one. I'm going to buy one that looks the prettiest to me, is the most colorful, is the most vibrant one. And I'm going to commit to 1 hour a day to painting, no more, no less.
Yep.
I'm going to listen to relaxing music while I do it. And I want to show you where I'm at so far.
Yes. So how many hours are you into it?
I'm 13 hours into my craft.
Okay. Crafting. Tiger. I love tigers. Oh my gosh. Look at all that detail.
So what I will tell you, Allison, it's really got me. There's a lot that you can't see on this canvas, a lot of fine detail, a lot of little sections for painting. And what it's taught me is don't focus on the little stuff. Don't spend so much time worrying about the details and the perfection. What it's really telling me is when I step back every hour and I see my progress and I take a picture of my picture every hour, it is actually something that's coming together in a way that I never thought would come together. It's going to be symbolic for me of coming through an experience, working intentionally day by day to create something bigger and better than I can't even possibly imagine.
Whoa! And you guys, that is the cowbell idea. You just said it beautifully. It's the little things that we're doing now that affect us so much in our future. So you're going through radiation right now.
I am.
And so how many more weeks do you have of radiation?
I have 4 more weeks of radiation.
And how are you going to celebrate when you're finished?
I don't know. I'm going to give that some thought, but I do intend to have some sort of celebration as best as possible that we can have. considering
Good.
our current health crisis.
Right. Well, I'm just curious because you had a parade happen for you.
I did.
And you actually, it's one of my favorite stories. She has a friend who is a firefighter, correct? And they came by and she's like, okay, that was nice, but next time can you come by and throw candy? And so then they redid the parade and then you got some candy. So I'm thinking it's going to be big because we really do need to celebrate this. But I just want to say you are so awesome. I've always loved your spirit, your determination, your vision, your goal setting. And I know this is such a huge part that's keeping you positive, but also you've really inspired me the entire time that you have fought cancer. And I'm so excited to see you getting healthy. And I'm going to be running my half marathon and you're going to be there June 20th. So I've been training to do this. We're going to make up our own because we can't do a real one. But I just want to say thank you so much for your inspiration and also really just being more intentional about how you live. If we can all be just a little bit more intentional, we're going to have awesome results. So thank you.
Allison, you're a great example, and I'm glad to be following in your footsteps.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.